C Lydian. It's the fourth degree of the key of G. The intervals are 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, and 7. The chords it creates are a C major triad or C major seventh chord, either of which you could add 9, sharp 11, and 6, or 13, if you want to call 6 13, and any combination of those intervals. First thing we'll do is I'll actually, since this has a new interval in it, the sharp 4, we'll talk about that interval shape. So from a C root, the sharp fourth is going to be up 1 fret on the adjacent string over. So go over 1 string and up 1 fret, and that's where you're going to find it in the 3-string pattern. The sharp 4 also sits literally halfway between an octave. So sometimes this interval is called a tritone. We're just going to call it sharp 4. Also, visually, it looks like it is sitting halfway in between, and it literally is note-wise, interval-wise as well. So you can call it a tritone if you want, but we're calling it sharp 4. So that's what it looks like in the 3-string pattern. In the 4-string pattern, you got to stretch a little bit. Okay, it skips a string and it's down 1, 2, 3, 4 frets. So a big jump to find that sharp 4. You should do each of those from every C root. All right. The next thing, I will play just in one position. Down here, I'll play it from root to root. So my C's are here. So you would do that in every position. Then you would record a C major seventh chord and start running around on the notes in all the various positions, just getting used to what the overall sound of the scale sounds like. Now, I'm going to just play briefly, very briefly, on this scale just so we listen to this sharp fourth interval. Some of you may hear the sharp 4 as almost sounding like a wrong note. Trust me, it isn't. It depends mostly on the kind of music that you've been listening to up to this point. If you've been listening to simpler styles of music, maybe you haven't heard this sharp 4 used too much, but it is used sometimes in pop music, but also very frequently in jazz and fusion type music. You hear this all the time. So I'm just going to demonstrate this very briefly. So that note by itself might sound a little funny to some people. Okay, it's a nice sounding note though. All right, so do that. Pay attention to that sharp 4, which is an F sharp note. Pay attention to that to get your ears adjusted to that as you do that step of running around through the positions over the C major 7. Okay, then we're on to 3- and 4-string patterns. The 3-string pattern, you should be able to figure the majority of these out by yourself, I would think, at this point. But I'll go over it very quickly. The 3-string pattern for Lydian, starting on this C, 2 4 1 2 4. I'm sorry, 2 4 1 3 4 1 3 4. So let me say that again. 2 4 1 3 4 1 3 4. Okay, so you do that from every root. The 4-string pattern, a little bit trickier. It's going to be 4 1 3. Shift down a fret onto the next string. 1 2 4 1 to 2. So 4 1 3. Shift down, 1 2 4, and 1 2. So do both of those patterns from every root. Alternate the patterns as usual, including the incomplete patterns. Get your full positions together so that you're visualizing them as those 3- and 4-string patterns. Next step, you're going to work on the tone center. The good news is you've already done this tone center. The tone center intervals for Lydian are the same as Ionian, 1 3 5 and 7. So the shapes and fingerings are going to be identical. So everything you did on G Ionian, just do it on C. that up and down the neck. Solo on just the tone center. Then start putting the colors in. So one at a time, add the 2 to the tone center, add the sharp 4 to the tone center, add the 6 to the tone center. Next step, the blues scale relationships. So A blues is really C pentatonic. So if you play what you think of as A blues, but you're doing it over a C major 7 chord, then C is actually the root. So A blues from a C root gives you C major pentatonic. The interval's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and back to 1. So if you already know how to play A blues, then you already know the full positions for C major pentatonic, but you would want to start looking at those as the intervals that they actually are, and also from a C root, not from the A. Okay, so take time to visualize that correctly from the C root. B blues. B blues actually gives us this sharp 4th interval in the scale. It's the only one of the 3 blues scales that does. So if you want to use a pentatonic idea and hear this Lydian sound, B blues is what you're going to do. What you want to remember is the root of the chord is C, but the root of the blues scale idea that you're going to use is B, which is a half step below. So anytime you go half step below the root of a major 7th chord and play a so-called minor pentatonic scale, you're going to get that sharp 4th interval of the Lydian scale. So there it is right there. There I just went to C. So I'll go back and forth just for a second between C major ideas and then the B blues. And I'll stay right here. Alright, so that's a nice sound. Guitar players use that all the time. All right, there are no unresolved intervals in the Lydian scale. Therefore, we cannot create progressions that moved resolved and unresolved to the C major 7th chord. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't hear Lydian progressions occasionally. One real common thing to do is play a C major triad, keep the C root on the bottom, and then play the D dominant triad. Again, that looks like a major, but it's actually a dominant. So there's lots of parts of songs that have that move in it where so that's a common one. Another way that you can use Lydian, let's think back to our 2-5-1 progression. So we had A minor 7, D7, G major 7, and obviously we played, A Dorian. And if I forgot to mention this, also, when you go back to this 2-5-1 progression, a separate thing that you should practice is playing Dorian ideas, obviously over the A minor, but now Mixolydian, because I know we did Mixolydian a while ago, but I might not have mentioned this. Over the D7 chord, start practicing playing from the D Mixolydian tone center. It's a very good thing to practice. So practicing what's called outlining the chords is a very useful thing to do. It's a practicing thing. You don't really want to do this every time when you solo, or it's going to sound very mechanical and predictable. But what this will do is give you the ability to play off of any single chord in the progression if you practice this. So over A minor, while the tape is, your recording is going, over A minor for the first measure, play just the tone center notes. When the D7 comes around, play off the D7 tone center, and when G major comes around, play off the G major 7 tone center. It takes a little bit of practice to get good at that, but what that'll allow you to do is when you're playing a solo for real, you could jump off at any time and play off of any one of those chords you want to give you some harmonic difference in sound. All right, so it's a very useful thing to practice is outlining the chords in terms of, playing mostly tone center notes. All right, so back to the Lydian thing. So 2, 5, 1, and 1 was obviously G Ionian. Well, it's also a very common thing to do, since Lydian is also a major scale, is to play the G Lydian scale. That means you've got to play notes from a different key. G Lydian is not in the key of G. G Lydian comes from the key of D major. So you would have to learn the notes for the key of D to do this. I'm just going to play one position for the notes. And again, we use the same positions for all keys, but they're on different frets. So here are the notes for the key of D right here. That actually gives me the notes for G Lydian. So I'll just do this once or twice so you can hear this. So 2, 5, play them normally, but when you get to the G major 7, and this is an arbitrary thing to practice. You don't have to do this now if you don't want to. You can always come back to this at any time and practice Lydian over this. I'm just throwing it out there since we're talking about Lydian. All right, so you're going to hear me play A Dorian to D Mixolydian to G Lydian, and I'll keep it very simple. Sorry, got the wrong progression here. Give me 1 second. I got to pull up another one. Okay. I'm almost there. Hang in with me. So 2, 5, 1. Come on, start. Yeah, wait till the next time it comes around. So here we go. Now G Lydian. All right, so it definitely gives you a different sound when you're doing that, but it's a nice sound. Okay, what I'm going to do is, because we're on to the chords right now, I'm just going to hold up a page out of the book rather than me sitting here and going over a bunch of Lydian chords. Let me just do this. Again, all scales are covered like this in the book. You've got the full neck diagram, and you've got C major triads in the box at the top, C major 7 chords in the box at the bottom. Okay, you can take a screenshot of that or whatever you want to do. And on the next page I have, and this is actually, again, done with all chords that are covered in the book. There's more than one page of chords. There's always 2 like this. So these are just various Lydian chords. All right, so you can try those. You can use the neck diagram on the left, make up your own, whatever you want to do. Okay, that's it for Lydian.